I didn't cry when the rejection email came. I didn't scream when I saw the list of accepted artists and found my name missing. I just closed my laptop, walked to the window of my tiny Brooklyn apartment, and looked out at the city that never looked back. We regret to inform you. That's how they started. No warmth, no feedback, just silence packaged in formality. It was my first solo exhibition proposal. I'd spent 6 months painting it, 12 pieces, raw, personal, vulnerable. I called the collection Inheritance, each canvas a reflection of the legacy I was supposed to carry and the identity I chose instead. The museum I submitted it to, the National Gallery of Modern Art, founded by the man who shares my last name, directed by the woman who gave birth to me, curated by the brother who once said, "You'll never understand real art, Vivienne. You feel too much." I stared at the glowing skyline. It felt poetic, almost cinematic that the institution that raised me, the walls I'd known since childhood, was now the first to slam the door in my face. But I didn't beg. I didn't call my mother. I didn't ask my brother for a second chance. I just picked up a paintbrush, and then a phone, and then a few very quiet, very strategic calls, because if they weren't going to let me inside, I'd find a way to own the place. Not just the museum, the whole damn conversation. I was raised in marble halls. My first steps echoed through vaulted museum corridors. My first sketch hung in the break room behind a Picasso. I grew up calling gallery interns by name, learning how to nod politely at donors and never, ever spill juice on the Persian rug in the East Wing. But I wasn't part of it. Not really. To the world, I was the daughter of a Lienerle, curator of legacy, elegance, and taste, the niece of Victor Le, patron of national identity, and the older sister of Simon Le, the next genius of curation. He was featured in Art Forum before he could legally rent a car. Me, I was the girl who cried in front of Rothko. I didn't theorize. I didn't analyze. I just felt. Too much, they said. Art is intellect, Vivienne, my mother would scold. Not therapy, and certainly not your therapy. She said it once, quietly, at a gala. While I stood next to her in a borrowed gown, hands still stained with oil paint. I hadn't even spoken, just existed wrong. That's how erasure works in families like mine, not with shouting, but with subtle, surgical dismissal. They never said I couldn't become an artist. They just never once called me one. The day I left home. It wasn't dramatic. No suitcases slammed shut. No teary monologues. Just a moment. At breakfast, I showed them my scholarship letter to a contemporary arts residency in Berlin. My father didn't even look up from his espresso. Installations in shipping containers. He scoffed. Sounds more like street performance than art. Simon smirked. Maybe you'll finally learn about color theory. My mother folded the letter, placed it beside her toast, then handed me a brochure for an MFA program she approved of under her friend's department. I left before the coffee cooled. They didn't stop me. They didn't call after. They didn't even ask for my new address. I disappeared from their version of the story. No mentions at galas, no family Christmas photos, no seat saved at exhibitions. And in their world of framed reputations and carefully arranged spotlights, I became invisible. But that's the thing about shadows. They know how to watch and how to wait. Berlin was cold. Not just the weather. The kind of cold that seeps in when no one says your name for months. No birthday calls, no texts, Not even a passive-aggressive email from Mother. Perfect. I rented a room in Kreuzberg. No heat, shared bathroom. The kind of place my father once warned would kill ambition. It did the opposite. I painted during the day, poured wine in artist-run cafes at night, and used every spare euro to scan galleries, blogs, crypto spaces, anywhere raw work could live, unfiltered by legacy. That's when I stopped being Vivienne and started signing pieces as V. Satori. Satori, Japanese for sudden awakening. A name without baggage, without expectation, without bloodlines whispering behind it. I posted my first series anonymously on a blockchain-based auction. 3 hours later, it sold for $800. Then came $3,000, then $12,000. By month 6, a collector in Seoul messaged, "Are you the same Satori whose piece disremembered made me cry in front of my staff?" I said nothing, just uploaded a new piece. But I wasn't just selling art. I was watching the system, every gallery failing to adapt to tech. Every museum bleeding money while chasing grants. Every self-righteous curator refusing to touch digital art. They mocked what they didn't understand. That's how systems collapse, and I'd learned from the best. While they ignored me, I studied them. And I invested, quietly, surgically, through shell entities and cultural startups. One gallery, then another. Then a controlling stake in a European preservation fund. By the time I turned 28, V. Satori wasn't just a pseudonym. It was a portfolio. And behind it, a woman who hadn't forgotten what her brother said at 17. "You feel too much to survive in this world." He was right. But what he didn't know is that I didn't come back to survive. I came to own it. It started with a headline. National Gallery reports budget shortfall, cites pandemic recovery struggles. Then came the whispers, donors backing out, attendance dropping, a major endowment delayed. The institution that once turned down my paintings because they were too intimate was bleeding in silence, and the curators, they were too proud to pivot, too proud to partner, too proud to ask for help. I smiled, because they wouldn't have to ask. I was already inside. 6 months earlier, I'd quietly acquired controlling interest in a cultural development firm called Arcline Strategies. It advised failing museums on modernization, digitization, and strategic asset redistribution. Very neutral, very boring, very powerful, and Arcline had just been tapped to assist with the gallery's restructuring. They didn't know Arcline was mine. They didn't know I was V. Satori. To them, I was just a ghost signature behind a growing investment fund called Satori Arts Collective, one of the young, tech-philanthropic entities showing interest in arts recovery. They even invited Ms. Satori to contribute to the upcoming gala. I accepted, through a proxy. "What's our current exposure?" I asked my lawyer Elise during a midnight call. She didn't hesitate. "We hold 48% of the voting shares across 4 holding groups. Once the transition package passes, we'll effectively control programming, curatorial direction, and board voting." I tapped my pen against the desk. "One more piece, then." "Which one?" I pulled up the map of the East Wing. "The Emerging Artist Showcase Fund. Simon manages it, if we redirect that endowment." Elise nodded. "We'll shift his curatorial power to a public board vote." I leaned back. "You can erase someone with silence, but I prefer bylaws." The gala was set for October 12th. a celebration of institutional resilience, an opportunity to announce new funding, a night for cameras, donors, and legacy families, including mine. I'd already selected my seat, not at the family table, at the head of the sponsor delegation under the name Satori Arts Collective. The placard would be waiting. So would my mother, my brother, my father if he still cared enough to show. They wouldn't recognize the name, not yet, but they would feel the shift. Because, for the first time in their carefully curated lives, they weren't holding the frame. They were inside the painting, and I was the one deciding what got hung and what got pulled from the walls. The invitation arrived embossed in gold foil. The National Gallery of Modern Art invites you to an evening of legacy and resilience. Theme: reawakening. Cute. I arrived alone. No entourage. No security. Just a black velvet suit, a pair of matte stilettos, and the calm of someone who knew exactly how the night would end. The valet opened the door. "Name, ma'am." I smiled. "Satori." He blinked, then scanned the list. "Satori Arts Collective, executive sponsor, table 1. Of course. The entrance hall shimmered with old money, crystal chandeliers, champagne pyramids, the sound of laughter that always felt just one octave too sharp. And then I saw them. My mother, in pearl gray, smiling for photographers. My father laughing beside a senator, wine swirling in his hand. My brother holding court near the installation wall, gesturing like he built it with his bare hands. They didn't see me. Not yet. "Miss Satori," a young assistant approached me nervous. "Would you like to preview the new acquisitions wing before the announcements?" I nodded. He led me through the East Wing corridor, where my proposal had once been rejected without so much as a comment. Tonight, it was renamed. The Satori Pavilion. 12 new pieces, mixed media, digital overlays, the final piece, Inheritance, my original collection. The one they said was too emotional. Now framed in tempered glass, bathed in light, and flanked by a quote from the artist herself. When they refused to show my story, I built a space where no one had to ask permission to tell theirs. Signed, Vivienne Satori La. I heard the crowd quiet from down the hall. Gala speeches had begun. I walked back slowly, letting the silence stretch. The director of development spoke first, then a board member, then my mother, who stood behind the podium, grace rehearsed down to the breath. "We are proud to welcome a new visionary partner tonight, a patron of new voices, a champion of modern reinvention." She turned slightly, unsure. "The Satori Arts Collective has been instrumental in securing this institution's future. We are grateful for her presence." Cameras flashed. I stepped forward. The room turned, first gasps, then confusion, then recognition. "Vivienne." My brother said it first. Like a question he didn't want the answer to. Mother's face stiffened. Father lowered his glass. I took the stage. For years, I was told that what I made wasn't real art. That emotion was weakness. That legacy was reserved for those who followed instructions. So I left. I built something outside the walls you guarded. And when the doors finally opened again, I didn't walk back in as a guest. I came as your majority stakeholder. Silence, then whispers, then a thunderclap of camera shutters. I turned to my mother. "Thank you for giving me the motivation to find my own voice." To my brother, "Don't worry. The East Wing budget has been restructured. You'll still have a position, just one where you'll finally answer to artists you never respected. To the crowd, tonight isn't about me. It's about every voice that was told it didn't belong in these halls, every idea silenced in the name of tradition. Let this be a beginning, not just a gala theme. I stepped down. They didn't applaud right away, not because they disagreed, but because no one remembered the last time someone spoke with that much clarity. In a building built entirely on suggestion, the gallery was quiet now. The last flute of champagne had been cleared. The last guest had disappeared behind gold elevator doors. Only family remained. How poetic. We stood in the Satori pavilion, the same space where my work had once been called immature, indulgent, unfit for public display. Now my name was etched on the plaque beside the exit. My mother turned first, her voice still composed but quieter. "Vivienne, you've made your point." I tilted my head. Which one? That emotion is valid, that digital art is real. Or that I don't need your approval to succeed. Her jaw tightened. "We were protecting you." "No," I said. "You were preserving your idea of me, the obedient daughter, the fallback, the one who wouldn't embarrass the name by feeling too loudly." My father crossed his arms. "You could have told us. We would have supported you." I laughed, a single, sharp note in the stillness. "You did support me, Dad. You supported everyone except me. You funded Simon's internships. You called his failed exhibitions experimental. You called mine dramatic." He looked away. The silence fell like marble. Simon, leaning against a pillar, finally spoke. "So what now, Vive? You own the place. Congratulations, is this revenge?" I walked toward him, measured. "No, Simon. Revenge would be taking your name off the curatorial board tonight. Revenge would be replacing every piece you ever approved with work by artists you mocked." I stopped. "This isn't revenge, this is realignment." He scoffed. "You're not a curator." I smiled. "I don't need to be. I empower the ones you were too arrogant to recognize." Mother stepped closer. Her tone changed, softer, almost maternal. "You hurt us tonight, Vivienne." I met her eyes. "No, Mom, you were hurt by the idea that I didn't need you. And that scares you more than failure ever did." Her hand trembled slightly on her clutch. I continued. "I used your maiden name to build my empire, because the name, your legacy, came with too many assumptions, too many locked doors, too many voices, silenced before they could even echo." I turned to leave, then paused. "To be clear, I didn't do this to destroy you. I did this to restore something, not the family name, but the meaning of art as inclusion, as rebellion, as truth." I walked to the exit of the pavilion, heels echoing against polished stone. Before I stepped out, I turned back one last time. "Next time you visit this museum, remember you're walking through stories your own family once refused to hear." Morning light filtered through the gallery windows. Sunbeams danced across canvases, once silent, now alive. The Satori pavilion stood open, no velvet ropes, no exclusive previews, just an invitation. My phone buzzed. A message from Elise. Press release went live. Overwhelming response. Attendance up 200%. I smiled. Across the hall, a young artist hovered by inheritance. Her eyes filled with wonder and recognition. I approached her quietly. "Your work in the community center, it moved me. I'd like to host your first solo show here." Tears welled in her eyes. This was the true payoff. In the boardroom, the family convened for the first time under new bylaws. My mother sat to my left, no longer as director, but as advisor. Simon, to my right, now curator of emerging voices, accountable to the public board. My father presided as chairman emeritus, honor without power. I cleared my throat. Today, we rewrite what legacy means, not just preserving the past, but nurturing every future. I clicked a remote. Behind me, a slideshow played. Community art grants awarded. Digital exhibition, platforms launching. Apprenticeships for underrepresented artists. Board members nodded. Their eyes shone, not with fear, but with resolve. Later, in the empty pavilion, I walked through each piece, touched frames once cold to my ideas, whispered thanks to the voices I'd elevated, and at the exit I paused, turning back to the door. To every voice that was told it didn't belong here. The door is always open now. I stepped into the sunlight, because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's opening space for others, and building a legacy that no wind of doubt can ever erase. 6 months later, no one called me a prodigy. They called me founder, mentor, investor, gay topener. I never did another solo show. Didn't need to. Instead, I curated silence into space. Space for first-time artists with trembling hands, for refugees painting memory, for girls who'd been told you're too much and not enough in the same breath. The National Gallery, once guarded by surnames and politics, now streamed weekly digital showcases to high school art rooms across the country. My office, a small corner behind the main wing, no portraits, just floor-to-ceiling windows and a wall pinned with sketches sent in by children. Crayon, watercolor, imagination raw and untrained, my kind of genius. One evening, my mother stopped by. She stood in front of Inheritance, the final piece. "I never knew it hurt you that much," she said softly. I shrugged. It wasn't just about hurt. It was about disappearing in a room full of my own blood. She nodded slowly. Her voice, for once, held no authority, just recognition. "I'm proud of what you built." That was new. I didn't need it, but I let it land. Sunday mornings now smell like paint and coffee. Young artists gather in the lobby for the Open Sketch Brunch series. I walk among them, anonymous again. Sometimes just every so often, someone asks if the rumors are true. "Did you really buy the museum that once rejected you?" I just smile, because that's not the story I care about anymore. The real story is this. Once I needed a seat at their table. Now I build longer tables, quieter rooms, better questions, and doors that never close behind anyone. Legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you leave behind. Soft enough for others to step into. Strong enough that they never have to beg to stay.